Good morning.
Hello, how are you today?
It's Hannah and Heidi.
Oh, wow,
I was like,
something was missing.
yeah, I was like, hold on, what am I?
New room, we get all messed up.
Yes.
Okay, good morning. Today we're going to talk about professional work attitudes. So as an employee, your attitude at work contributes to your work environment and how you get along with your coworkers and your supervisors. A positive attitude can improve your morale and increase your productivity for you and for everybody. So the purpose of our activity today is to generate a discussion or talk about different things about workplace attitudes of both supervisors and with your coworkers, and how these attitudes impact everyone around us.
Okay, so go ahead, take a minute, and imagine it's your first day of work at a new job. Talk about what you would do to make a good impression on your coworkers and supervisor. Go ahead, make a list with people you're around, or even with yourself. If you just have a piece of paper, write some stuff down. And why might it be important to make a good impression on your first day of work?
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about a person named Justin. So we're going to take a look at some different work attitudes. We're going to give you a little situation that Justin is having at work, and then ask a question to see what you think about his work attitude. Okay, so the first one says, Justin is a stock clerk at the local grocery store. So he works at a grocery store, and a stock clerk is somebody that puts different things on the shelves for you, different things that are for sale, and make sure that all of those shelves are fully stocked. So Justin does only what he is told to do. No more and no less. So do you think, does Justin have a good attitude towards work? Why or why not?
So why don't you go ahead and pause your video, discuss it, or think about it for a second, and then when you come back, Heidi and I will discuss it.
Okay. So what do you think? Do you think Justin has a good work attitude?
I mean, personally, I'd be happy that he's doing what he's supposed to, but like when I managed Starbucks and when I had other people working under me, so as a supervisor, I always looked for the people who did more than what I asked and wanted to help and do a good job and find new ways they can help and be responsible.
I agree. I mean, it's good that he doesn't do any less than what he's told, but like Hannah says, even if you're told just to do this, to keep going and kind of go, what that phrase is, above and beyond. Keep going and to do something a little bit more.
Okay. So the next situation we're going to talk about. One day, one of Justin's coworkers knocked over a product display. Boxes were scattered all over the floor. At the time, Justin was working close by. He ignored the scattered boxes and left his workstation to tell others what had happened. So, if you were the coworker who knocked over the display, what would you have said to Justin in this situation? So again, go ahead, take a minute, pause, discuss it, think about it, whatever you want to do, and when you come back, we'll discuss it. Okay, Heidi, what would you say if you were Justin's coworker?
If I was coworkers with Justin, I would say, hey, Justin, could you help me out for a second? Because if I knocked over a display and it went all over the place, I'm guessing they're at a grocery store, right?
Oh, yeah.
If I'm at a grocery store and I have everything all over the floor, people aren't going to be able to get their carts through. People aren't going to be able to walk through the aisle. So I would want to get that picked up as quickly as possible. And part of working, especially at a grocery store, would be to work together, to have a coworker that you could work on. So what I would have said was, hey, Justin, can you help me for a minute so we can get this all picked up?
Mm-hmm. Especially because if Justin has all of his stuff organized with, like, whatever he's stocking or whatever he's doing, like, at least it's organized and out of the way for people. And, like, the mess that was just created by his coworker who accidentally knocked stuff over.
Right. Okay, question number 3. Later on that same day, Justin was stocking shelves. The item that he was stocking belonged in another part of the store. A coworker trying to help Justin told him that he was making a mistake. Justin insisted that he was right and he started an argument with his coworker. So, was it right for Justin to argue with his coworker? What could Justin have done differently? So, pause the video, take some time to think about it. Should he have started an argument with his coworker, or what could he have done differently in that situation? Discuss that, and then we'll discuss it after you have thought about it. So, what do you think? Do you think he should have started an argument, or what he could have done different?
Personally, I would say argument is the wrong word that you would want in this situation. Maybe, like, for example, if I'm doing something and I think it's right and Heidi comes and tells me otherwise, maybe I explain to Heidi, like, why I think this is right and why I'm doing something this way. And then she can come and explain why she thinks it should be done her way. So you can see both sides of the argument and figure out who's right or who has the better solution or come up with one together. Yeah.
So I kind of answered both there. What
Yes.
could he have done right? Starting an argument is never going to get anywhere. It's going to make you or Justin feel upset as well as the coworker feel upset. So I like the idea of, figuring out what Hannah was going to think and do for that situation, figure out what I was going to do for that situation, and either find out the best solution or to come up with one together. That's a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, arguing is just going to keep you arguing and not get along.
Yeah, someone's going to be upset by the end of it, if not both people. And then, obviously, you guys aren't going to get along in the future because you're going to think, oh, this person's just going to start an argument with me.
Right.
Okay. Next situation here. So, before Justin went home that night, he overheard a personal conversation between two coworkers and the supervisor. The next morning, Justin told everyone what he had heard. The entire store was soon talking about what Justin told them. Was Justin correct in discussing what he had overheard? Explain. So again, take a minute, discuss it, think about it, and when you come back, we'll go over this. Okay, Heidi, do you think Justin was correct in discussing what he had overheard? Explain your thoughts.
Well, I think this comes back to many of the lessons that we've talked about and many of the things that we've done in the whole concept of worrying about yourself.
Yes.
This situation of this personal conversation had nothing to do with Justin. It wasn't about him. It wasn't about anything that he had any part of the situation in, so it really wasn't any of his business. So, was he correct in discussing it? I think no. He should have, if he overheard it, kept it to himself. There was no reason that he had to explain or talk about somebody else's situation or somebody else's business.
And just imagine how the other people involved in this conversation would feel. Personally, if I was talking to a supervisor and some coworkers, people I trusted about something, and the next thing I know, everyone in the store is talking about it, I would be upset. I wouldn't be happy with whoever talked about it. I might feel embarrassed if it was something super personal.
Right.
So it doesn't just, it affects everyone around you when you gossip, because that's what he was doing, was gossiping.
Right. And how would you feel if it was you talking to that supervisor and somebody said your information, like Hannah said? It doesn't help any of the situations at all. Okay, our last situation today is when Justin's supervisor found out what happened. She called Justin into her office for a conference. So, there's a few questions here. What do you think was said to Justin? If you were one of Justin's coworkers, what advice would you give him? And if you were Justin's supervisor, what could you do to help him become a better employee? Okay, that's a lot there.
Yes.
When Justin's supervisor found out what had happened, so I think kind of the whole day, I would say, out of all these situations we talked about, Justin's supervisor has found out how he has been performing. So, what do you think his supervisor was going to say to him? Think about that and kind of talk about that one. If you were one of Justin's co-workers, what advice would you give to him? So, take your time, pause the video, and think about that question. What would you give him as advice if you were his coworker? And if you were Justin's supervisor, what could you do to help him become a better employee? Think about that, pause the video, and then we'll talk about each one of those questions too. Okay, so what do you think was said to Justin when he had to talk to his supervisor?
Well, I'm sure they talked about helping other people out and being a good coworker and a good teammate, because when you work with other people, you're on a team together. So being a good coworker and good teammate and helping others out when something happens. I would assume they would talk about, again, not maybe starting an argument, but going over each other's thought processes and figuring out the best solution instead of starting an argument. And of course, like we just talked about in the last situation, talking about minding your own business, not getting involved in gossip, and just keeping things to yourself if it doesn't involve you.
What do you think one of Justin's coworkers would give him for some advice?
Oh, goodness. I feel like a supervisor and a coworker would honestly give the same advice, but coming from your supervisor, you should probably take it to heart, take it super seriously. Like, this is what your boss is telling you to do. And a coworker, they probably are trying to look out for the best, like, in your best interest and making sure that you're doing what you're supposed to and getting things done. So that way everyone's working together and doing better. So I would still take to heart whatever your coworker said and maybe take it with a grain of salt. That's what I do. I have a hard time taking criticism personally. But just remember, they're probably trying to look out for your best interest. And if they're coming to you and being like, hey, I see what you're doing a good job with what you're doing, but why don't we try doing more of this and helping out more and doing this? I would probably listen to them and be like, oh, I want my coworkers to like me. Maybe I should listen.
So if you were Justin's supervisor, what would you do to help him become a better employee?
Honestly, I would provide him with situations kind of like this and kind of talk about what he could be doing when stuff spills, even though it's not his mess, and what to do if you're coming to a disagreement with coworkers, and just kind of give him other situations and go over what you could do or should do in those situations to make himself a better employee.
I think that's a good idea, yeah. These are good examples, and to come up with some examples that would really fit into what he does in his day-to-day routine.
Mm-hmm. So go ahead, talk with whoever you're with, or think about it with yourself, and describe Justin's work attitude. What do you think would be the most difficult part of being Justin's supervisor? How can a supervisor or boss affect your job performance? And of course, how can coworker attitudes affect your job performance? So there's a couple of questions there, so I'll say them again. What do you think would be the most difficult part of being Justin's supervisor? How can a supervisor or boss affect your job performance? And how can coworker attitudes affect your job performance? So go ahead, pause the video, talk about it. You could even end this. This is kind of the end of our lesson. But then you don't get to hear us say goodbye.
Right, exact. The best part of the whole thing.
But just take a couple minutes, talk about that, talk about all the different situations, and maybe talk about what you would do if you were his boss in that situation, what you would do if you were his coworker, things like that. Anything else to add, Heidi?
I don't think so. I mean, I think this lesson talks really well about how we have to think about how our supervisors are thinking, as well as how our coworkers are thinking. They're people that you have to work with every day. And if you're not working together and keep that positive attitude to be a good team player, makes it difficult for everybody that's around. So yes, really think about those questions. I think that they would be very helpful in many situations.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.